one image stuck in my memory. It was daybreak. I woke up and I could faintly hear in the dark. Oh, Gorizia, tu sei maledetta. Only later I understood the history behind the song. Outside I saw men and women, my father and mother, rifles in their hands. My father was crying and singing. I was at the door of the house. My mother turned, smiled at me, but it was a mysterious, confident smile. Cara moglie, che tu non mi senti, raccomando ai compagni vicini di tenermi da conto i bambini, che io muoio col suo nome nel cuore. Of course, I had no idea where they were buried. Traditori, signori ufficiali, che la guerra l'avete voluta, scannatori di carne venduta e rovina della gioventù. 12 years later, the Mars mission. In a way, the people who killed my parents found me in Italy and recruited me. Saved me, you can say. It is ironic, no? My parents fought for freedom. I cannot say I'm free here on Mars. They took my semen this morning for the population increase program. Here, on Mars, often in the middle of the night, I hear my parents sing. Oh, Gorizia, tu sei maledetta per ogni cuore che sente coscienza. Dolorosa ci fu la partenza e il ritorno per molti non fu. O Gorizia, tu sei maledetta per ogni cuore che sente coscienza. Dolorosa ci fu la partenza e il ritorno per molti non fu.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
deepest tunes, the warmest memories. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. It's been a real journey. Music, stories, and memories. Radio Nostalgia from Mars has it all. If you want to be involved with RNFM, have a story to tell, a memory to share, contact us via the usual intranet channels and leave a short message outlining your contribution. Once your story idea is vetted and greenlit by corporate, we'll track you down to organize a time to record you. Please note that not all stories are accepted and we are not permitted to give out criteria, so stories and ideas are submitted at your own risk. A big thank you to our show sponsor, OMAS, the No Stress, No Fuss drink for the Ultra Elite. And a big thank you to corporate for allocating us this precious time and their resources on this tight beam to you. I hope you've enjoyed the show. It's been a pleasure to take your hand. We're playing out with Crowded in My Mind, a song that always reminds us that no matter how cramped and stuffy we feel, in the end, there is always a breath of fresh air in memories of blue skies.
Muzika iz starih dobrih dana. Radio nostalgija sa Marsa.
Please stand by for next transmission. Please stand by for next transmission in 30 seconds. Please stand by for next transmission in 20 seconds. In 15 seconds. In 10 seconds. In 5 seconds. In 1 second.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Yate, all you Martians out there, welcome to another edition of Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Plenty of great stuff coming your way on to Soul Show. You know, a bit of that old Terran flavor, some more stories from our beloved callers, and news and views from around our base out here among the stars. Like I said, your tight beam to Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Breathe easy, kick back, and reminisce. with the club classic Proto 2021, a a long-lost Earth Day anthem recently discovered in the archives here on Mars. That should take most of us back to the days when Mars was nothing but an evening star in the sky, and large social gatherings were still normal and carefree. Speaking of carefree, look out for 3 new OMAS flavors, pink, green, and yellow. Pure calm in a tube. Right, moving on. As always, we've collected some stories from our beloved callers, and up first is a young man who might just be the luckiest one of us all.
События, воспоминания, старые добрые времена, оригинальные источники, подлинные истории, надежда, вдохновение, драма, радионостальгия с Марса.
I nearly missed the boat to Mars. I mean, the rumours about something big happening in Alphaville had been floating for a few years, and of course it was impossible to separate fact from fiction. At that time, I barely made it through insurgent territory to this floating ghetto about an hour away from Alphaville by motorboat. I won't go into detail, but the crew I ran with bribed an outpost guard to go have a really long piss, where we used his comms to access their infranet. Their information turned out just as distorted as ours, but we found one channel that changed everything. Some bright spark in Alphaville had made colour-coded spreadsheets of shipping data a monkey could understand. Imports into Alphaville were off the charts, while exports had zeroed out completely. I mean, nothing was coming out, even on the black market, which incidentally was fully accounted for, meaning it had to be sanctioned all along. So we knew something was up. Of course, Alphaville media spun this situation heavily. The insurgents were blamed for everything, disrupting supply lines, stealing aid, and so on. But it was really Alphaville stockpiling on a scale unseen in modern history. What tipped us off that they were planning to leave Earth is what they were stockpiling. Fuel. Specifically, dinitrogen, tetroxide, and hydrazine. Old school. But they're chemicals used as rocket fuel. They're easy to store, but they're highly toxic and require careful handling, which explained another gruesome discovery: the covert shipping and dumping of bodies. A lot of bodies. There were so many that some of those bodies had started washing up in our neighbourhood, so toxic even scavengers stayed away. Coincidentally, it suddenly became much easier to get a multi-day work pass into Alphaville. We were so hungry and focused on other resources, we didn't make the connection. We assumed the workers were skipping on the visa. In fact, I was planning to do the exact same thing. So actually, I lucked out. I'm a small guy, and Alphaville was so strapped for labour at that point that I was given an unscreened pass and ended up in heavy labour, moving enormous containers into storage with mechanical suits, but it didn't fit them. So I was just given a scanner instead and told to scan serial numbers all day. It was very hard to breathe, so I traded for a spare hazmat suit from a drunk guard and put it on. Not unusual at all to hang out all day in a hazy. Technically just walking outside required one those days. That's what saved me, twice. Whew. I mean, hindsight is 20/20, but those containers were the rocket fuel. And in no way was it being stored and transported safely. All those guys died, withered to skin and bone. Nasty stuff. Again, it was all hidden in plain sight. Hell, we were all skin and bone at that point. We just assumed everyone was starving. I only got onto one of the last ships up to Mars because I was in a hazmat suit and holding that scanner, which I think had stopped working within the first days of my assignment. I never told anyone, and no one ever asked. I guess I was confused with security or something. All I remember is being yelled at, rushed into a shuttle, and then everyone patting me on the back and calling me Scully. The name embedded in the biometrics of the suit. I never saw my crew or the sky again.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Wow, what amazing luck to be in the right suit at the right time. Just goes to show, dressing appropriately for the job can really go a long way. Speaking of dressing appropriately, here's a Mars fun fact. Despite an average temperature of well below minus 80 degrees centigrade, if you step outside without a suit on, you won't freeze to death, your blood will boil. That's due to the low atmospheric pressure outside. So please maintain your suits properly and follow decontamination protocols strictly at all times when returning from extra habitat activities. No suit, no life, as we say.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Right. How about a 21st century love song remixed for the 22nd? Who's watching who? Espionage or true love? I guess we'll never really be quite sure.
Your home away from home. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Ah, surveillance love song, an oldie, but a goodie. Sophie Jazz reminding us that love remains as complicated as ever, despite our patented matchmaking algorithms and genetic profiling. On the subject of complications, the Mars Time Conglomerate has asked me to mention that even though a Mars sol is 40 minutes longer than a day on Earth, you do not have to manually add 40 minutes to your clocks every sol. We are officially on Mars clock time, so every second, minute and hour across all systems and devices are 2.7% longer by design. I know it's confusing at first, but just keep time as usual. For all practical purposes, we live a 24-hour day up here, just like we did on Earth.
Slušajte Radio Nostalgiju sa Marsa.
Okay, on with the show. Well, we've had a few requests for some classical music, and boy do I have a double treat for all you classical and vinyl lovers out there. A genuine record playing off an actual record player on loan from a dedicated RNFM fan. So grab a tube of OMAS, sit back, and enjoy some chill, neoclassical vibes with that warm vinyl sound, right here on Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Take a moment, relax, and remember with Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Posíchaj starý dobrý dán. Radio Nostalgia Samas.
From neoclassical to electronica, we really do have it all here on Radio Nostalgia from Mars. First we heard an original vinyl with music from an unknown composer, lost to time, I'm afraid. All I can say is it's a white label test pressing found in a recycling bin with just the word Aftermath written across the label. After that we got the blood pumping with an upbeat tune from Polytet AD and their classic tune, Do You Love Me? Want to keep that blood pumping? Remember, exercise is mandatory. No groans, no bones. And mental exercise is just as important, so get on down to your local rec center for a dose of mentally stimulating team activities and some delicious OMAS. Okay, on to our next caller for the show. Money reminds us that one person's pleasure is another person's pain, and that we might not all relax in the same way to the same things.
Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
I go back in a heartbeat. Tesla City is unbearable. As far as I'm concerned, this promise...
Your home away from home. Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Now, as much as we appreciate our regular callers, there is one person we would really love to hear from. A man many of us owe our lives to. Our national hero, the Mars mission pilot, who brought us here safely so many years ago. Believe it or not, he finally made it back to Earth. After all these years, his dream finally came true. As we all know, he's had a very difficult time adapting to life here on Mars. We all have, just not in the public eye like him. So Charlie, this is Radio Nostalgia from Mars, personally reaching out to you. Charlie, we'd really appreciate it if you took some time to share a bit of the atmosphere on Earth with us. I'm sure many of our listeners are eager to hear your thoughts on being back. Just speak into the mic in your helmet. A few recorded words. Anything.
Well, it's worth a shot. I know he's the biggest fan of Radio Nostalgia from Mars, and he's probably listening now from a rooftop somewhere in Alphaville. So stay tuned to see if he responds. But to be honest, I don't think we'll be hearing from him anytime soon, sadly. Oh well, who can blame him? Let's not spoil his moment any longer and continue our own trip down memory lane.
Dictatorship without oxygen. All these daily routines and protocols about everything we took for granted on Earth are so exhausting. Is it safe to take off your hazmat to breathe? Is the water distilled from all our urine really safe? And exactly what behavior will trigger a social credit demotion? Not to mention, every sneeze is suspect. The whole dome has to be sanitized if someone even sniffles. You'd think we figured it out during the pandemics. I know social distancing up here is impossible, but how freaking difficult is it to keep your hands clean and just not sneeze on stuff? Anyway, maybe that's humanity in a nutshell. After all, we walked on the moon before really learning to walk on Earth. I digress. I just want to say that the effort put into maintaining basic life functions in this state-of-the-art society outweighs the benefit of being alive. Use your head, can't you? Use your head. You're on Earth, there's no cure for that. Sam Beckett wrote that in Endgame. We're not cured, regardless of what our de facto overlords claim. It's ironic that the only thing we managed to export culturally onto another planet is a Silicon Valley brand of Protestantism. Sorry for rambling. Anyway, I called into the program to share some Earth sounds I captured. I'm sure listeners of RNFM who suffer from nostalgia like me we'll appreciate them. In the meditation dome, we can listen to the light sounds of the Tuscan country, the olive grove shores of Kefalonia, the blue Danube below the Schwarzwald. I went to the meditation dome a few times, but just like yoga, I can't stand it. Simply, I don't miss nature at all. I was never a nature person, never really liked hiking or camping. I miss the city. This whole predicament started because we mixed with wilderness in the first place. This bullshit about Mother Nature sugarcoated the fact that maybe we were supposed to keep a sharp boundary between ourselves and the wild. And now we're demoted from Earthling to miserable Martian status. So at the end of every day, soul, I escape into texts I brought along. I drink that horrid canteen coffee and listen to urban sounds I recorded 15 years ago, mostly in New York and London. Here are some of my favorite sounds. Here's the sound of my bicycle rolling down the street. Sound of the bustling city in the morning, a call and response of cars and birds. And the giggling of my kids in Washington Square as a group of street performers play the boombox and do tricks. Kettle going off and the smell of Turkish coffee. And for some reason, I'm obsessed with the sound of the New York MTA.
Why did you stop?
We don't have to see. It's an illusion. We're still moving.
Thank you, Manya, for sharing both your thoughts and your favorite sounds with us. That MTA recording actually got me digging into my proverbial record crate because it reminded me of this old track from my DJing days back on Earth called Tokyo 320, a minimal tech house homage to life in the commute and traveling while standing still. Wonderful stuff. Not so wonderful, though, is a spate of ecoplastic stockpiling occurring in sectors 7 through 12 after rumors of a pending shortage. Guys, ecoplastic items are freely dispensed at conveniently located kiosks around Tesla City, so there's simply no need to hoard any ecoplastic items. In fact, hoarding them deprives the 3D printers of the recyclable material they need to make them freely available. So your stockpiling is kind of defeating the point of renewable resources. There's a 14-sol grace period to return all parts not in use. No questions asked. Besides, however much you hold on, there's just one thing you can't stockpile.
Twój dom daleko od domu. Radio Nostalgia z Marsa.
Stockpiled on water, stockpiled on soap, stockpiled on blankets, stockpiled on coal, stockpiled on rice, stockpiled on rifles, stockpiled on base, stockpiled on sardines, stockpiled Stockpiled on road, but I cannot. Stockpile on low, stockpile on low, stockpile on low, stockpile on low, stockpiled on books, stockpiled on gas, stockpiled on toilet paper, stockpiled on maize, stockpiled on butter, stockpiled on toast, stockpiled on silver, stockpiled on gold, stockpiled on bourbon, stockpiled on scotch, but I cannot. Stockpile on love, 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 stockpile on love.
Katerina Peak there, reminding us that all the good things in the world are no substitute for love. So, if you've recently matched with someone via our repopulation program and you've received a date for your first meetup, don't forget to add it to your mandatory diary. There does seem to be some confusion about scheduling based on the new double month standard, but it's really quite simple, guys. There are now 24 months in our year, and there are 2 of each month, January 1 and January 2, February 1 and February 2, and so on. Each month is now 28 sols long, except for every 6th month, which is 27 sols long. I hope that clears up the situation. Any further queries, in writing please, can be submitted directly to the Mars Coalition for the simplification of the Martian calendar.
Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
So, from trains and city soundscapes to rhythms born out of hands and feet, water and drums, we continue our journey into the past, into our collective memories of Earth, a celebration of sound as music, music as sound, and voices that carry us into the stars. In that vein, a friendly reminder that silence is deadly. If you hear nothing, please report it. General machine noise means we are being kept alive. Speaking of keeping us alive, 2 equals 1. Duplicates are not spares, people. Everything on Mars is duplicated for security, so please do not cannibalize existing tech. If something breaks, head directly to the spares and parts department in Sector 5 to submit your report and apply for official replacements.
Ihr Zuhause in der Ferne. Radio Nostalgie.
It's time for our last caller. A senior geologist at Tesla University gives us a slightly different perspective. His research lab at the South Pole.
思い出エピソードあの頃の記憶古き良き時代の話希望ひらめき出来事ラジオノスタルジア from Mars.
As a geologist, it always annoyed me that the color of Earth conservation was green. Seen from space, the majority of the Earth's surface is blue, with the remaining 29% for land. And of that land, deserts make up 1/3 of the land surface area. Sweeping burns of ochre, rust, and gold. Cream! Give me a break. Anyway, as a lifelong acolyte of sun and sand, I'm not up here pining for jungles and wetlands. I yearn for week-long expeditions into the desert, traversing dunes big enough to swallow entire towns in one sideways drift. Oh, to feel that lovely.